I always thought Markus looked like he was dressed for Game 3, what with all the fur and whatnot, but anyway, it's been a while since I've had Empire on the channel. Got this replay from Setzer here, and I figured I would take the chance to talk about Markus, kind of how he fits into the scheme of Empire Lords. I'm of the opinion that Franz or Volkmar, Karl Franz or Volkmar, are the best Lord choices in most matchups, but given the recent changes to mass embracing and everything, Markus, because he's relatively cheap, has nets, strong ranged attacks, lots of other upside. Potentially he's better now because he can be better protected. And kind of the meta, it seems, has shifted towards more wide armies with cheap, cost-effective lords and heroes. But anyway, let's take a look here. Besides Markus, he's got a Bright Wizard, a bunch of State Troop Swordsmen up to rank 5, so a little bit of veterancy there. Will trade very well. 37-37 on attack and defense. Demogryph Knights with halberds. We've got a couple of huntsmen and a crossbowman. Spearmen protecting the back. For the High Elves, these bolt throwers already paying dividends, doing some nice damage to the regiment renowned wagons there. Along with these outriders, got some silver helms protecting the rear. Archmage, Dragon Archmage of High Magic. Very nice choice. I say very nice choice. I like the choice of High Magic here. I think the dragon can be a bit risky, but she's got, Soul Quench as well as the breath attacks for the dragon to potentially deal some ranged damage from the air. Pretty squishy though, only 60 armor and a little over 5,000 HP base. Sun Dragon, no, it's a Moon Dragon, that's right, relatively squishy, but also archers, spearmen, and yeah, pretty straightforward high elf build. So as this kind of skirmish phase unfolds, the bolt throwers will be shooting and doing some good damage against the Demogryph Knights and whatever other targets, but Markus is going to start to make his way over here. So Markus, just again for his stats, the biggest thing is his range damage, right? He does 230 armor piercing plus 100 base missile damage per shot plus 120 bonus versus large. So that is a substantial amount of damage against large targets. Not to mention, of course, he also has nets, 2 magic missiles, although Setzer only brought the 1 here. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the magic missiles at all, just in general. They're not super reliable, like sometimes they'll bug out or miss, and then you just lose the value there. Again, one of the upsides of Markus is that he's relatively cheap, given that he can still deal a lot of damage. So he's going to start to take some pot shots here at the Dragon Mage. One of the war wagons does go down here, the Hellblaster, which is unfortunate. They're going to get a little bit of volleys here, though, so it's not completely wasted value, but losing one of those models there already, this is a big loss. Be certain, meanwhile, the infantry forces are kind of mutually agreeing to have a nice combat here. Empire has a little bit of a high ground advantage. These archers shooting uphill, I want to say that hills actually... I believe it affects speed, charge, and missile damage, I want to say. So, like, shooting uphill then would slightly decrease the missile damage to the units on the top of the hill, I believe. I need to double-check that. But anyway, these veteran swordsmen should trade just fine against the High Elf Spears. Switching back on over to Markus. He's kind of just hanging around here. Obviously, the only large, high-value target is the Archmage herself. These Silver Helms will potentially be good targets to shoot at as well for Markus into the late game, especially given that the Halberd demis are just getting whittled down by those bolt throwers without generating any value. But here comes the net, and this is what you bring Markus for. Outriders and unload their repeaters. And of course, Markus has his bow as well. It's kind of interesting. You would think it does magic damage given the effect and everything, but obviously the Amber Bow ability does deal magic damage, whereas his actual attacks do not. So something to be aware of there. Bolt throwers in the multi-shot aren't going to be doing a ton to these Outriders, but, as soon as I say that, of course, they get absolutely wrecked. Beautiful Burning Head, too, by Setzer here. Just destroys one unit of archers. That's some great value. Silver Helms are being deployed, though, as some of the archers are routed off by the Huntsmen. Crossbowmen also being routed off by counterfire. And obviously, Demogryph Knights with halberds would trade well with Silver Helms normally, but this situation here, the Silver Helms charge the Swordsmen, Demis charge the Silver Helms, and then another unit of Silver Helms rear charges the Demis, so they just get severely outnumbered here, where you can see kind of one Demogryph Knight model is fighting multiple models of the Silver Helms. They're just not trading efficiently. They're doing some damage, but they're getting worn down. 2 swordsmen here, veteran swordsmen, no spear support, just get impacted by those Silver Helms. Doesn't do that much, but it does quite a bit. That snipe attempt on the Archmage here did rout her off. She's going to come back, pop that Apotheosis on herself. Meanwhile, the Outriders, oh, and the last of the War Wagons, too, being exploded by those nasty bolts. Another good Burning Head, too, just roasting out another Archer. Although not the most high-value unit to go after, from a tactical perspective, just getting rid of them, and it does straight up shatter them, is pretty important. Markus, as well, from kind of a priority standpoint, in terms of enemy target priority, the dragon is the most threatening thing to Markus himself, which is why it makes sense to go after it first. Once that's gone, the next most threatening thing to the army in general is obviously these Silver Helms. These veteran swordsmen do represent a pretty significant investment. I want to say probably like 500 to 550 points for that veterancy level. I don't remember exactly, but it's about 2,000 points plus, 2,500 points potentially of just swordsmen. You do want to protect those from the high charge of the Silver Helms. They're only 30 armor still, even though they do have 37 melee defense, which is quite nice. But nice breath attack here. We'll do a little bit of friendly fire, literally, but also wrecks 2 units of spearmen there quite well. Apotheosis gets popped. And of course, that Shield of Sapphire going to be giving a little bit of damage resistance map-wide to all the elves, which is always nice, given they have pretty squishy HP. Soul Quench as well comes in here, explodes unit of swordsmen, and spearmen from the side. Again, nice range damage from the air to the ground, keeping this tight. Dragon's now going to drop down and go after the caster, try and prevent those burning heads, but that allows Markus to pull up point blank, 360, no scope bolt. Whoop, just about missed the headshot there. But I promise he did headshot the dragon. Oh, nope, nope's out of that one, decides to pull his sword out. Nope, let's pull the bow out again and actually just shuffle on. Nice turn and shoot there into the side of the spearman. But the battle at this point, balance power looking pretty close still. The bolt throwers are just about out of ammunition, so they can't really threaten this infantry force too much here, as long as you can keep like this one healthy unit of spearmen in the fight. There's still a few swordsmen too, and the veterancy will help them kind of hang around. Another net gets dropped though. Markus is going to go all in to try and finish off Archmage here. We've also got a handful of Outriders moving in from the side to deal some more damage. They can kind of act as a mobile, maybe wheel around this way and just keep pressuring the Archmage. Looks like she's maybe going to go for a response. Ooh, the miscast damage is unfortunate though. Markus just gets domed by that Soul Quench. Actually does a pretty substantial amount of damage to him. I almost wonder if the High Elf player had been using that Soul Quench on Markus kind of throughout the battle. Maybe that would have made a pretty significant difference. Could have counter-sniped him potentially, but as it is, the Outriders come in for some clutch volleys from the side, take a breath attack to the face, then get routed, and Markus routs the Archmage there. So all's well at the end of the day. Still some Silver Helms left to deal with. Bolt throwers are mostly out of ammo. There are still a few archers with ammo. But the State Troop Infantry now looking pretty safe for the most part. This unit of Silver Helms is kind of the most healthy here. Markus is going to shoot the side of that rock and then realize, hey, maybe I should, maneuver around the side. Actually gets a shot there, though. Nice cross body across the ravine here. Silver Helms charging in. And, by the way, I finally did get my settings figured out. Hopefully it looks good. This is my 3rd time trying to record this video. So as some of you guys may know, recently I've been having issues where, like, my cursor doesn't show in the right place. And then once I tried to fix that, it was causing major issues in OBS, and yeah. Anyway, got it figured out now. Sorry, that's why I missed a day. It took me a day to kind of figure things out. Here we are, with some more Empire action. Things are looking a little grim, though, for the Empire, as a lot of units get cleaned up. The Dragon does come back one more time, another Apotheosis. Outriders try and get a few volleys, but they get scared and then run away. The healing there... Archmage might be able to come back. But all this time, this unit of Silver Helms here has just been continuously whittled down by Markus. Each shot kind of acts almost like a bolt thrower in that it kills multiple models, although it should be noted it does not count as such in terms of leadership penalties. You can see it says under missile fire and not under artillery fire. But anyway, one last charge of the Silver Helms gets interrupted by this net here. Spearmen, State Troop Swordsmen turn around. With that veterancy especially, those swordsmen going to be trading quite nicely here. Dragon's coming back. Or its last stand, and the bolt throwers out of ammunition, moving up to face their grim fate in melee here. Amber Bow, which hasn't been used all game, finally gets used here to finish off the Archmage. He's most likely going to shatter here. Yeah, leadership goes, and on the third route, that is a shatter. One more shot, just for spite. Doesn't quite finish her off, but she's gone. And that's pretty much it for the High Elves. We'll fast forward through this last cleanup phase here, as the battle is effectively over at this point. Man, Markus, though, as far as where he fits into the general meta of things, I do think that there is some potential here. In terms of Foot Lords, like Foot Franz is kind of in vogue right now, right? That's a fashionable thing to take, potentially. And there are some benefits. I would say, in terms of support abilities, it's kind of apples to oranges. It's really like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer to have the nets, which not only is great for ranged attacks, obviously, but you can also use to great effect with shock cavalry charges for Empire. You have some great shock cavalry, like Knights of the Blazing Sun especially, and so on, but also Karl has his melee buffs, right? The main difference in my mind is that Karl's much tankier, but Markus can project his strength at a range because his primary damage comes from his ranged attack. That means he doesn't necessarily need to be wherever, you know, the big target is that he's trying to kill, whereas Franz on foot does have to shuffle around and get to a specific place before he can start dealing damage. So there is that difference to be aware of. I'm not really sure. I need to play around with it some more and see. Karl, I still think on a Griffin is going to be probably the best choice in the counter-monster matchups. Maybe not in a couple. Maybe Markus will actually be meta for some, but Volkmar still, I think, will probably be the best in a lot of matchups. That being said, Markus, for how cheap he is, very cost-effective here. 2,500 damage value. Very good stuff. 8,000 damage dealt overall. Most of that obviously coming against the Archmage and the Silver Helms. Fire Mage also got some pretty good value with those burning heads. Spearmen, State Troop Spearmen, no shields, considering they're 325. 462 is great value there. 319, pretty good stuff. Veteran Swordsmen, 3 of them paid for themselves, 2 of them did not, so interesting there. The Huntsmen, I didn't really highlight too much. They got some good damage on those Silver Helms as they were kind of wheeling around the formation after that initial charge. Crossbowmen got counterfired pretty hard, but that's not the biggest deal in the world. They're relatively cheap. The Demis and the War Lions here, or sorry, the War Wagons, the Black Lions, they had a rough time. Definitely got hard countered by these bolt throwers who generated great value. Likewise, the Silver Helms, having a lot of veteran state troops to go after, did generate some pretty good value as well, as did the Archers, all basically paid for themselves. The Spearmen, kind of just here to get run over, which is unfortunate, but the Dragon really is the kind of where most value was let down. Even still, pretty good value. 1,500 is not bad, but just want a little bit more out of that expensive of a monster, which is why I'm not the biggest fan of the Dragon mount, at least in multiplayer. I'm not the biggest fan of the Dragon mount for the Archmages. Definitely much better in campaign, but yeah, let's kind of finish up the discussion about Markus here. Again, the nice thing about Markus is that he can kind of project his power at range, right? And only 1310. This is actually, for me personally, the kit I would take him with. Rather than taking any of the magic missiles, bring this fleet-footed ability that will allow you to get away from stuff to continue shooting. I'm personally a fan of this. It's not too expensive either. Only 152 gold there for that. 150 for the Hunter Snare is absolutely essential. If you really wanted to go maximum cheap, you could, I guess, cut fleet-footed. Only 1158 at that point for Markus, and given the damage value potential, as you saw there, he is very cost-effective. That is undeniable, certainly. And just by being so cost-effective, you could take a very wide, kind of well-supported army, which is one of the Empire's strengths, right? So, in that sense, it does seem as if he would be one of the top Lord choices, and I do think that he's definitely a strong Lord choice. Is he necessarily the best? Maybe in a couple matchups, actually. I need to, again, play around with him a little bit more and see, but just in comparison, a typical Foot Franz loadout would be considerably more. Like, I'd probably go with this, which is a lot. Maybe you cut Galmaraz because you don't necessarily, you know, he's going to be spending a more limited time in combat, but definitely the support abilities. And 1628 he is more expensive, but Markus is a little bit squishier. He is a little bit more snipeable, obviously. Less armor Same melee defense as Carl, actually, but less armor and 10 less HP. Wow, the Emperor must have been lifting some weights or something. Carl also 65 charge bonus on foot is pretty legit. But anyway, Markus, very cheap, and that is definitely a benefit. This is a build I had kind of theory crafted last time I recorded this in terms of maybe like Tomb Kings or something. You can actually give Markus fire damage by augmenting him with the Banner of Eternal Flame. The Warrior Priest just needs to be standing nearby, and he'll get constant fire damage, not only on his melee, but also on his missile attacks as well. You know, you can then take advantage of some Kindle Flame, like Fireball procs, maybe some Burning Heads, just to really maximize Markus's damage. Of course, also you've got the Knights of the Blazing Sun, which can benefit from that Kindle Flame. Nets also, as I mentioned, benefit Shock Cavalry and Knights of the Blazing Sun with their massive 78 charge, 42 weapon strength. You know, that by itself is what, 120 damage plus 22% from the Kindle Flame. And considering that you could potentially net something and then charge it so it doesn't get a counter charge and just has to stand and take it, very, very strong synergy. Of course, like I said, also synergizes with ranged units, but that's pretty obvious. Let me know what you guys think, though, down in the comments below. Do you think Markus is the best choice in certain matchups? Maybe I would say Lizardman's probably the one I would think of most. I don't know, though. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoy. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe. Hit that bell notification. Every time I upload, you'll be notified. Thanks again. See you next time.